Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss current affairs of 11th March 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 6 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So let's get started with our discussion. So before getting started, I want to make you a small announcement. We came up with this current affairs package course. In this course, we are exclusively focusing on current affairs and also mains answer writing practice. So if you ask me what is importance of current affairs, about 50 to 60% of questions, either it may be prelims or mains or even in interview, you can expect questions from this current affairs regarding issues. So if you are getting any static based questions, they are also maximum related to this current affairs. So mastering of current affairs, it is an important key to clear UPSC. And if you ask me what is importance of mains answer writing practice, many students they ignore this answer writing practice. So what is importance of this answer writing practice? So if you see in your final mains, you have to answer at least 20 to 22 questions within 3 hours of time. So approximately you will get 7 to 8 minutes for one question. So within this 7 to 8 minutes, you need to read question at least twice to understand demand of question. And also you have to come up with a framework of answer, and finally you have to write answer. So within 7 minutes you have to complete one answer. So please imagine how much fast you need to be mainly to answer those all questions here. So because of this, you need to improve your answer writing skills, and also even you have to improve your handwriting speed also. So this can be done only when you start your answer writing practice on day 1 of your preparation. So if you're joining this course, we are daily giving you one question, and on Sundays we will be providing you one essay, and we will also evaluating your answers. And if you're joining this course, we will be also giving you prelims practice questions on weekly basis along with video solutions. So in this way, this course is exactly focusing on what is demand of UPSC. So one thing I want to say finally, please don't take this course as a choice. Please try to join this course as soon as possible and achieve your dream of clearing UPSC. So this course is highly economical also, because we are charging just 10 rupees per day. So this is 1 year course. So 1 year you have to pay 3650 rupees only. Okay. So if you go outside for 10 rupees, you will not get even a filter coffee also. So please think like that and try to enroll this course as soon as possible. So details of this course which is given in description box, so please visit once. And before starting this lecture, I want to wish you a very happy Mahashivratri. Okay, so now let us see first article. Title says Lok Sabha gives approval for National Capital Territory Bill. So now recently this bill which is also passed in Rajya Sabha, and now this bill has got approval from Lok Sabha. So this bill, it will be very helpful for improvement of local slum areas in National Capital Region. So this article is important regarding polity point of view, which comes under GS paper 2. So if you are writing any answer regarding development of slums area, and if you are talking about any disaster management regarding this, for example, we can say these slums areas are very much vulnerable to floods, etc., right? So whenever you are talking about this disaster management regarding this local slum areas, so you can talk about this National Capital Territory Bill. So government also came up with this bill for development of these slum areas. So in this way, you can use this article regarding mains answer writing. So now let us see context, and we are going to see some important details of this article, and also we are going to see facts regarding this National Capital Territory Bill. So context here is Lok Sabha passed National Capital Territory of Delhi Law, Special Provision Second Amendment Bill 2021. So what is this bill mainly talks about? So this bill mainly seeks to regularize unauthorized colonies that existed in this National Capital Territory Delhi as on June 1st, 2014. And after this bill which came into existence, so that led to some development up to 50% in this by January 1st, 2015. So this bill got approval, okay, mainly in June, okay, 2014, and after 1 year we saw about 50% of development in this area. So if you see some facts regarding this recent amendment bill 2021, So it mainly came up with some key provisions. So these key provisions include, first one is it amends this National Capital Territory of Delhi laws, special provisions, second act, okay, second amendment act of 2011. So it will be extension that will be validity till December 31st, 2023. So it mainly extended its validity. So it is about this amendment to this act. So if you see what are these unauthorized colonies, according to 2011 Act, it mainly says that it mainly provided for regularization of certain unauthorized colonies. They are existed as on March 31st, 2002. Okay. And next one is where construction took place till 2014. So these are some unauthorized areas which are considered under this 2011 Act. So if you see some amendments, it mainly says that, so this bill mainly say they mainly states that unauthorized colonies, they will be identified for as per regulations under this NCT Recognition Properties Rights of Resident Unauthorized Colonies Act of 2019, and they will give some regulations here. So this will be helpful mainly for development. Okay, so if you see key provisions of this first bill, it mainly says that relocating of these slum dwellers and as well as Juggi Jhumpri clusters according to provisions which are mainly given under Delhi Shelter Improvement Board Act 2010, and as well as another important act here is Master Plan for Delhi 2021. So according to these two acts here, so they will go for relocating of the slums and as well as relocating of Juggi Jhumpri clusters here. So according to this Master Plan for Delhi, it mainly provides some strategies of housing for urban poor as well as dealing with some informal sector, informal housing actually. So this act will also create a policy plan for farmhouses which are constructed beyond permissible building limits of National Capital Region. So these are some important things that you should remember regarding this bill. And now let us see next article. Title says United Nations Security Council slams Myanmar violence. So this article mainly talking about UNSC. So it is important regarding international relations which comes under GS paper 2. And for this year you can expect questions regarding this UNSC in your prelims and also in your mains for sure. Because UNSC which is highly in use, and also India got non-permanent seat under this UNSC for 2-year tenure, right? So because of this, you can expect UNSC question in your prelims and also even your mains for sure. Okay, you have to prepare for this topic for sure. And now let us try to understand this article in great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that UNSC agreed on statement that condemns violence against Myanmar protesters and also urges military restraint and as well as diplomat restraint here. So what is the context here? If you see background, in Myanmar there is military coup. Okay, so because of this military coup, there is leading to violence in that area, and as well as democratic government that won in recent elections also detained in Myanmar. So now United Nations Security Council also agreed on statement that mainly condemns violence against Myanmar protesters and also urges military restraints and as well as diplomatic restraint here. In this context, UNSC also condemns violence against peaceful protesters, for example, women, youth, children, etc. So in this way, Council mainly calls for military to exercise utmost restraints and as well as to emphasize on situation closely. Okay, there is no need of violence here because protests are happening peacefully. So in this way, UNSC mainly condemns this violence against peaceful protesters and as well as urging some military restraint. Now let us try to understand some facts regarding this United Nations Security Council. So this United Nations Security Council mainly established by United Nations Charter in year 1945. So it is one of 6 principal organs of United Nations. So what are those rest 5 United Nations principal organs? So you can expect prelims questions regarding this. What are those 5 principal organs of United Nations? So they include United Nations General Assembly, United Nations Trusteeship Council, and as well as Economic and Social Council of United Nations, and next one is International Court of Justice and United Nations Secretariat. So these are 5 other principal organs of United Nations Security Council. So if you see members are 15 members, so out of these 15 members we can divide into 2 groups. First one is 5, these are permanent 5 countries, so they will enjoy veto power. And next 10 countries, they include non-permanent members, so they will be elected once in they will be elected for a tenure of 2 years. Okay, so 1 year there will be elections for 5 countries, and next year there will be elections for 5 countries. Okay, for every year we can see elections for 5 non-permanent countries that will be seen in this United Nations Security Council. So what is primary responsibility of this United Nations Security Council? Mainly to work to maintain international peace and security across the world. So if you see headquarters, it is located in New York. So these are some important facts that you should remember regarding this. And now let us see next article. Title says diagnosing gestational diabetes. So this article mainly focusing on gestational diabetes mellitus. So first of all, what is this diabetes mellitus? So diabetes mellitus, it is a condition in which we can see there is high glucose level. Okay, we can say blood sugar level is high. So why blood sugar level is high? So if you see, we have pancreas. In this pancreas we have alpha cells, beta cells, etc. Okay, so this pancreas, they are mainly responsible for production of insulin and as well as glucagon. So what is function of insulin? Insulin will convert blood sugar, okay, blood sugar into glucagon. So if you see, next one is next one is glucose here. So if we hear, these are two important hormones which are mainly released by this alpha cells and beta cells of this pancreas, that is insulin and glucagon. Okay, so here insulin mainly converts blood glucose into glycogen, and glucagon converts glycogen into blood sugar levels. So if you are having any fasting condition, so many students, they might be fasting today, right? So in this fasting you will be not taking any food, right? So because of this, how you will get energy? So already in your body there will be some glycogen that will be stored here. So this glycogen will be converted into blood sugar level that will provide you energy to sustain for one day, okay, for this day especially. So this will be done by this glycagon. Okay, this is important thing. Okay, so you have to remember here insulin and as well as glycagon. Okay, glycagon. So this insulin mainly converts blood sugar into glycogen, and glycagon converts this glycogen into blood sugar level in fasting conditions. So in this diabetes mellitus, there is insufficient production of insulin. Okay, so because of this, what happened here, blood sugar level they will be not converted into glycogen. So because of this, in blood we can see high concentration of this blood sugar that is present. So this condition is called diabetes mellitus. So if you see types of this diabetes mellitus, there are mainly 4 types. So as I know, there are mainly 3 types of diabetes mellitus. So first one is type 1, second one is type 2, and third one is gestational diabetes mellitus. So if you see, in type 1 there is less production of insulin that is seen. In type 2 there is sufficient levels of insulin that is produced in body, but cells will have resistance to this insulin. So because of this, we can say type 2 diabetes mellitus. And next one is during pregnancy. Here during pregnancies, pregnant people, they will take lot amount of foods than required, right? So because of this, they might develop the gestational diabetes mellitus. So this article mainly focusing on this diabetes mellitus that commonly seen during this pregnancy. Okay, so now let us try to understand this article in great detail. So this article is important regarding health, which mainly comes under GS paper 2. So if you see this gestational diabetes mellitus, why we need to study this? So if you see background here, diabetes mellitus, it is one of major public health problem in our country. So if you see data, we are estimated about 7 crore adults with diabetes mellitus, and half of them, they are mainly do not know about they are suffering from this diabetes here. So half of people, they remain undiagnosed till late complications they are setting. So because of diabetes mellitus, there will be increased blood sugar levels. So because of increase in blood sugar levels, we can see some impact on overall health system. And because of this diabetes mellitus, that will also leads to decrease in economic productivity, and as well as there will be alterations in individual health or lifestyle of people, and as well as it will also have some impact on family life. So if you're talking about the data regarding this gestational diabetes mellitus, women mainly develop a transitionary form of diabetes during this pregnancy. So this type of diabetes which mainly occurred in this pregnancy, it is called as gestational diabetes mellitus. especially women in India regarding to South Asian origin, they have high risk of this gestational diabetes mellitus. So if you see data regarding this International Diabetes Federation, it mainly estimates that up to 25% of pregnancies in South Asia, they mainly affected by this hyperglycemia in pregnancy. And even if you are comparing with diabetes mellitus in rural areas and urban areas, in rural areas most of them 10% of women they will be affected with this gestational diabetes mellitus, and in urban areas about 30% of women who are pregnant they will be affected with this gestational diabetes mellitus. So this 10% people mainly contribute to about 27 to 30 lakh people, and 30% of urban pregnant women they contribute about 2.7 to 3 crore pregnant women. So what will be impact whenever any pregnant woman she is suffering from this gestational diabetes? So whenever any woman she is getting this gestational diabetes mellitus, there will be increased risk of complication during pregnancy that include preeclampsia. So this preeclampsia means we can say in normal lay terms that is fits during pregnancy. And next one is postpartum hemorrhage, that is after delivery hemorrhage, that is blood loss will be high. And next one is there is prolonged and as well as obstructive labor. So because of this prolonged and obstructive labor, there is need of assisted delivery also. And next one is there is high chances of sepsis, that is infection, stillbirths and as well as premature deliveries. And there is also increased risk of neonatal deaths because of neonatal hypoglycemia and as well as birth injuries to baby. So these are some increased complications whenever any woman she is facing this gestational diabetes. So women after getting this gestational diabetes, so 50% of women who got this gestational diabetes mellitus, they have high chances to develop type 2 diabetes mellitus within 10 years. So in this way, even children who are born to those women who are suffering with this gestational diabetes mellitus, they are also will be having high risk of obesity, high risk of getting this type 2 diabetes mellitus and also even cardiovascular diseases here. So in this way, we need to address this gestational diabetes mellitus very soon and at early stages here, because we can decrease neonatal and as well as newborn morbidity and as well as mortality whenever we are addressing this gestational diabetes, and as well as we can reduce risk of future diabetes mellitus and as well as cardiovascular diseases in women. And as well as whenever we are addressing this gestational diabetes mellitus at early stage here, we can break change of diabetes begetting diabetes. That means diabetes from mother to children here. So these are three important advantages whenever we are addressing this gestational diabetes at early stages. So if you see what are concerns here, so regarding this gestational diabetes, so there is lack of public awareness and as well as there is lack of capacity building in health systems etc. here regarding testing and as well as providing some care to these women who are suffering from this gestational diabetes. Okay, so though we have national guidelines and as well as diagnostic and management of gestational diabetes mellitus by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So even Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, it came up with national guidelines regarding diagnosis and management of this gestational diabetes mellitus. So there is lack of public awareness and as well as there is lack of capacity building even in our health system also. So in this way, what can be done? So we can go for healthy future nation. So whenever we want to build healthy future nation, so we need healthy parents and as well as healthy children. So mainly we need to increase awareness regarding this gestational diabetes mellitus. So because of this, we are celebrating this National Gestational Diabetes Awareness Day on March 10th every year. So it is one of South Asian initiative. So because South Asian people, they are more highly prone to this gestational diabetes. So because of this, number of organizations, institutions, academicians, they come together mainly to raise awareness about this gestational diabetes. So because of this, yesterday we celebrated this National Gestational Diabetes Awareness Day here. So because of this gestational diabetes is in news. Okay. So now let us see next article. Title says Towards Peace on Border. So this article mainly focusing on India's new policy regarding peaceful borders across LAC, that is line of actual control, and also across line of control. So if you see this Jammu and Kashmir area, we have this line of actual control here, that is between India and China, and here we have LOC, that is line of control between Pakistan and India. So in these two areas now we are seeing some peace at these borders. So this article mainly talked about regarding this LOC and LAC. So how we approach this peace here. So now let us try to understand this article in a very great detail. So this article, it is important regarding international relations, which comes under GS paper 2, and also it will be important regarding border security, which comes under GS paper 3. So if you see context here, China has withdrawn its troops in eastern Ladakh across LAC region, that is especially at Pongyongso Lake area. And if you are talking about LOC, here Pakistan has voluntarily came forward for a ceasefire across this LOC region. So because of these two important developments across our border, so US administration, that is new US administration, that is Biden administration, has been issuing some positive statements regarding this border, okay, border peace at this border. So if you're talking about this LAC, so with this China, this is second time from last few years we are facing military standoff here. So in 2017 we saw military standoff at the Doklam area. So it is for 72 days. And if you're talking about this LAC standoff recently, that started in April-May 2020 onwards. So it is almost 10 months here. Now we came up with withdrawal of troops along this Pongyongso Lake area. And still there is a need of disengagement at other areas like Dipsang Plain areas and Gogra Hot Spring areas, etc. So if you're talking about Pakistan LOC, that is line of control, the Director General of Military Operations from Indian side and as well as Pakistan side, they decided to implement this 2003 ceasefire agreement here. So after world ceasefire violation across LOC in this last year from 2020, so we saw more than 5,000 ceasefire violations here, and now we came up with finally we are going to decide to implement 2003 ceasefire agreement here. So why Pakistan came voluntarily here? Because Pakistan, it is under pressure from India, not only from India but also from US administration as well as from China also. As we know, China and Pakistan, they are all weather friends, but now China, which is mainly showing some uncertainty or unhappy regarding this Pakistan actions over this China-Pakistan economic corridor. And next one is from Financial Action Task Force also. So it gave some time till next plenary decision here whether to keep this Pakistan in blacklist or not. So because of this, it need to take some steps, right? So because of this, Pakistan took this step mainly to come out of this grey list of this FATF. And next one is economy of Pakistan, which is worstly hit because of COVID-19. And because of this COVID-19, it also affected exports of this Pakistan. And as well as it is mainly facing some repayment crisis. So because of all these reasons, Pakistan came forward voluntarily to come up with ceasefire agreement. Okay, so this is just all this article. And now let us see next article. Title says regulation redux. So this central theme mainly says that an environmental regulator can work only if governments see the value of nature. So this article mainly focusing on need of this environmental regulator. So this article is important regarding environment and ecology, which comes under GS paper 3. So let us have a detailed discussion on this topic. So this article mainly focusing on environmental regulator. So why it is in news? Because recently Supreme Court gave a notice to Center mainly on public interest to set up a national environment regulator under this Environment Protection Act of 1986. So is this first time Supreme Court gave directions to Center regarding this environment regulator? No. Okay, so this is not first time. But this is in news because recently one PIL mainly submitted to Supreme Court here. Under this PIL, it mainly talked about setting up of this National Environment Regulator under this Environment Protection Act of 1986. So Supreme Court mainly revives an issue that successive government had preferred to ignore. So from last some years, Supreme Court mainly constantly giving notices to Center, but successive government mainly ignoring about the setting up of this environment regulator under this Environment Protection Act here. So in spite of specific orders which is mainly passed by Supreme Court from 9 years onwards, Supreme Court mainly giving some notification to Center to come up with this environment regulator, but central government which is mainly ignoring those directions which are given by Supreme Court. So why we need this environment regulator? So recently government came up with the draft Environment Impact Assessment 2020. So under this Environment Impact Assessment here, So it makes no efforts to disguise the desire to virtually eliminate civil society role. So it is mainly talking about there is no role of civil society regarding this environment impact assessment, and this environment impact assessment also does not encourage any public to vote its views and as well as to report violations regarding scrutiny. So scrutiny also weakened regarding this environment impact assessment draft here. So because of this, current PIL mainly forcing government to set up a fresh explanation regarding this creation of this environment regulator. So this PIL also raised issue regarding lack of credibility of this environment impact assessment process, and it also says that often reports produced, they are mainly come up by these dubious experts or some manipulated data that is seen in those reports. So this environment impact assessment also ill-equipped to assess the loss of biodiversity and as well as ecosystem services regarding clean air, clean water, farm productivity also. So this PIA also proponents also ignores the views of communities to be displaced. So regarding this EIA, it also ignoring values of communities regarding this environment projects here. So because of this, recently PIL mainly that filed in Supreme Court regarding establishment of environment regulator here. So what is this issue? So to understand this, if you are coming up with any development project in any area, for example, if you are taking any forest is present, in this forest we are going to have a national highway. So in this forest we have biodiversity is present and it will be ecologically sensitive area. So whenever we are coming up with development projects here, we need to cover this area here, right? So whenever we are going for clear downing of this forest, that will lead to fragmentation of these habitats. So earlier animals, they used to freely move within this area, but because of this national highway, so animals, they will not move here. So animals used to live in this area, they cannot move out either side, and animals who are living in this area, they will not come this side. So because of this, there will be fragmentation of those ecosystem that will be happen. So because of this fragmentation, they will go for interbreeding. So because of this interbreeding, sometimes it will lead to some genetic mutations that will lead to finally extinct of those animals also. So because of this, whenever we are going for any development projects, we need to go for impact assessment. So how impact will be, so how much amount of forest will be cut down, and how much amount of this area that will be gone to hands of other areas. So what happens whenever there is fragmentation of habitats that is happen? So what is impact on those resources which are present in that area? So whether it will lead to any disasters or not. So in this way, there will be impact assessment that to be done here. So because of recent impact assessment environment impact assessment 2020 draft, it mainly have some dilutions regarding this regulation, scrutiny, etc. So because of this, there is a need of environment regulator, independent environment regulator, mainly to look after this development projects and impacts on environment here. Okay, so in this context, center and state, they must acknowledge the conflict arising from pressure on scarce land as well as ecosystem here. So mainly from polluting projects. So if you are coming up with any development projects, what happen if you take this example, whenever we are laying any road here, so because of this, there will be increased movement of vehicles. So because of increased movement of vehicles, what happen, there will be release of carbon dioxide emissions into atmosphere, and as well as there will be release of greenhouse gases. So on one side, we are cutting down this forest. So because of this deforestation, the amount of carbon sequestration that will be released and carbon footprints will be increased. And second reason here is because of increase in vehicular movement, that will further increases greenhouse gases, that will further leads to global warming here. Okay, so because of this, center and state, they must acknowledge the conflict which is arising mainly from pressure on scarce land and as well as pressure on ecosystem because of this polluting areas or polluting projects. So even if you're talking about CPCB's Comprehensive Environment Pollution Index, so in this index also India, it is mainly performing bad. So because of this, mainly to do something good towards our environment, so we need to come up with this independent environment regulator. So this is gist of this article, and I hope it is clear. And now let us see next article. Title says a case of revamped need-based PDS. So this article mainly focusing on public distribution system. So what is this public distribution system? So this is important scheme which comes under National Food Security Act of 2013. So under this act, government will provide some food grains at subsidized prices to below poverty line people. Okay, so in this way we are ensuring food security and as well as nutritional security to these people who are mainly present below poverty line, and we are going to address somewhat hunger by providing subsidized food grains to these poor people. So this is about PDS system. So this article mainly focusing on what are problems regarding this PDS system, and recently in our economic survey which also focused on this PDS system. So we are going to discuss each and everything in a great detail. So this article is important regarding economy and as well as GS paper 2 under governance. So now first let us see why it is in news. So if you see context, it mainly says that economic survey rightly flagged issue of growing food subsidy bill. Okay, government mainly becoming unmanageable here. So economic survey mainly highlighted that there is increasing food subsidy bill. So with this increase in subsidy bill, now government can also not manage this subsidy bill here. So what might be reason for increasing in this food subsidy bill? So this food subsidy along with withdrawal of food grains by states from central government for different schemes. Here if you see state governments also coming with state government schemes. So under this state government schemes also they are mainly withdrawing this food grains mainly from center. Okay, along with government will also provide some food subsidy. So food subsidy plus withdrawal of food grains by states, that is leading to increase in food subsidy bill. And next one is if you are adding the subsidy amount plus loans which are taken by Food Corporation of India under National Small Savings Fund here. So it is about 1.65 lakh crore to 2.2 lakh crores here. In future it may be expanded to 2.5 lakh crores. So it is a very huge amount. So if you see during last 3 years, quantity of food grains withdrawn by states, that is about 60 million, increased from 60 million to 69 million tons. So about 91 to 95% of food grains, they will be withdrawn by state itself. So what is reason? Reason here is there is enhanced entitlements coverage. So we are covering about 2/3 of country's population under this National Food Security Act. And second important thing you should remember here is, here survey hinted some central issuance prices. So this central issuance price, it is rupees 2 rupees per kg for wheat and 3 rupees kg per rice here. So according to this National Food Security Act, it mainly said that so there should be price revision after 3 years, but we didn't came up with this central issuance price revision here. And next one is variation in retail issuance price of rice and wheat in different states. So states are coming up with state schemes, and this PDS system mainly used for as an old politics here. So because of this, if you see in some states like Karnataka and West Bengal, they have different schemes like priority households and as well as Antyodaya Anna Yojana. So under this there is nil issuance of retail price. And if you are talking about Odisha, they are going for rupees 1 per kg they are providing rice or wheat. And next one is in Bihar, and most of these beneficiaries they are getting wheat for rupees 2 per kg and rice for rupees 3 per kg. And if you are talking about some other states here, for example other states like Tamil Nadu, they are going for issuing rice which is a free of cost for all categories. So because of all reason there is increasing of this food subsidy bill. And if you see what is need, the need here is when you are going for increasing of this central issuance prices without corresponding rise in state issuance price here, so there will be increase in burden of states and resource crunch that can be seen. So in this context, what is way forward? First one here is, here center it need to relook at overall food subsidy system, including it need to revise pricing system also. And next one is existing rate system, that is universal to all. We can come up with slab system. Okay, so below poverty people we are giving about 2 to 3 rupees. But if you see some income people, so who are above this below poverty line, so they need to pay at least 5 to 10 rupees. So in this way we can come up with a different slab system rather than uniform rate system. And next one is we need to revisit this National Food Security Act norms. So we need to decrease this quantum coverage from 67% from now to 40% here. So we need to use technology regarding this PDS system mainly to decrease leakages. First one is we need to go for end-to-end computerization of operations For example, if there is any lorry which is loaded with these bags of rice and it started movement from FCI to states, so we need to completely track this lorry from where it started till it is reaching the states and till it is unloading. So after unloading these rice bags, how the states are providing this fair for this fair price shops, etc. And in that fair price shop or ration shops also, we need to track how much quantity which went and how much quantity is delivered. So according to this, we need to mainly go for end-to-end computerization of operations. So after load which is received by these ration shops here, so there should be automatic system, like message should be sent to mobile phones of people who are eligible to get those rice or food grains from that ration shop here. So this type of end-to-end computerization system mainly come up in state like Andhra Pradesh here. So you can write case study of Andhra Pradesh regarding computerization of operations regarding this PDS system. And next one is digitalization of data of ration card holders such that we can eliminate duplications of these ration cards. And next one is we can go for seeding of Aadhaar, and we can go for automation of this fair price shops also. So these are some important technologies that can be incorporated in this PDS system, mainly to remove leakages here. So in this way, finally author mainly concludes that we mainly need revamped and need-based PDS system, and not just for cutting down the subsidy bill, but also to reduce scope of leakages. So in this way, we can address these issues regarding this PDS system. So this is gist of this article. I hope it is clear. Today there is no question. Today there is holiday for you people because of Mahashivratri here. So by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. And don't forget to enroll this current affairs package. Please. Thank you so much.